What a great time to be a Giant, be a fan of the Giants.
Like, we have something going here. We're building something special, and, you can see it from the outside and inside. It's even more beautiful.
Reflecting on everything that got me here, just to see that uniform, and, I watched, that's the team I watched the most growing up because my dad was a Giants fan, so.
Once a Giant, always a Giant. For me, it's only a Giant.
Welcome, everybody, to a special post-game edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton. Well, it's New Year's Eve, and the folks over in Times Square were not the only ones who dropped the ball. Yes, the New York Giants dropped the ball again in an upset bid against a team that's heading to the playoffs. This time, it was the Rams. 26-25, the final score here at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. And, boy, you look at this team, it was really the story of the 2023 New York Giants. And that's come in Brian Daboll's second season here. And it's really come down to the little things. And all of the little things that this team was able to do last year, they've been unable to do this year. And it's really, everything starts with the quarterback. We all know that. The failures earlier this year with Daniel Jones, obviously the circumstances around him need to be better. But the reality is that when Daniel played, things went wrong. And the Giants had opportunities here to beat the Rams. There's no question. Gunnar Olszewski, a 94-yard punt return for a touchdown, pulling something out of nothing. Then they have the two-point conversion, and boy, Tyrod Taylor wishes he had that one back. And there are a lot of little things that Tyrod wishes he had back. And that was kind of also a story of Tyrod Taylor. His career, 13 years in the NFL, there have been ups and there have been downs. And he makes the spectacular look easy. Again, another bomb to Darius Slayton. The ball travels 60 yards in the air. 80-yard touchdown to Slayton. You look at his throw last week in Philadelphia against the Eagles to Slayton. But then you look at plays he missed last week. A throw to Darren Waller when he was wide open. A throw to Saquon Barkley when he was open. I'm not sure if any were easier to make, more routine, than the two-point conversion. The Giants had lined up for the PAT to tie the game. And then the Rams jumped off sides. So they got closer to the goal line, down at the 1, half the distance. Brian Daboll says, we're going for 2. They go for 2. They motion Saquon Barkley to the left, then have him reverse his motion, cut through the mesh near the line, and he's wide open on the goal line. Tyrod rolled to his right, and he had a decision to make. Either run to the end zone and score himself, or flip it to Saquon and let Saquon do the rest. There was nobody on the defense that was going to get in the way of Saquon or Tyrod. And Tyrod short-armed it because he said he was indecisive. And the ball was behind Saquon. And just like that, it was 26-25. And you just felt the air come out of the stadium. And like these Giants have done, they somehow got another opportunity. They got the ball back. Isaiah Simmons with a sack. They end up getting the ball back, no timeouts, and a 31-yard scramble by Tyrod after a drop by Saquon on first down, and the Giants were in business. But then a spike, and the decision to have a draw play to Saquon Barkley really set things up in a negative direction. He was stopped for a loss of 2. The Rams pulled off a stunt and decked Saquon behind the line of scrimmage. And with Mason Crosby in this situation, I'm not sure you were going to feel much comfortable unless it was a chip shot. The weather wasn't great today. Kickers were missing extra points everywhere. But the reality is when his 54-yard field goal to win the game was kind of being set up, You just had that feeling that there was no way he was making that kick. It was short, sailed to the left even before it reached the goalposts, and the Giants ended up losing 26-25. So a lot of big plays, a lot of mistakes. The fumbled exchange on 4th and 1 near midfield cost the Giants. The interception that Tyrod ended up throwing, and he said after the game he had Jalen Hyatt open on a similar route that he hit Slayton on, but he threw the interception to Jordan Fuller. And just mistake after mistake. And the bottom line is bad teams make bad plays to lose games. And that's what the Giants did. And they had opportunity after opportunity to make a big play to turn this game in their favor, and they failed to do so. Before we get to the draft order situation, a couple good things for the Giants, bright spots, if you will. Got to give a lot of credit to Bobby Okereke. A sack and a half today, 11 tackles, again played every snap. He has just really been the Giants' MVP across the board. So kudos to this front office for signing him. You can say all you want about mistakes that they have made and maybe, misread certain situations, but Okereke was exactly what this defense needed, and he's somebody you need to feel real good about anchoring the middle of your defense moving forward. When you look at Darius Slayton, the way he's playing right now, the nuance in his route running, what he did last week with the body control on the 69-yard touchdown against the Eagles, what he did today, really tracking the football on that throw that traveled 60 yards from Tyrod Taylor. Just another impressive performance by Darius Slayton. He's led this team in receiving for the last 5 years, and you give him a lot of credit for what he's done and come back from where he was last year, beginning of the season, when everyone kind of expected him to either be cut or traded. So that's where we're at. The Giants have one more game next week, a stunning upset. Arizona over Philly. Looks like that game now, Giants-Eagles, won't mean anything. If Dallas wins, obviously, they'll win the division, and Philly will end up having to go on the road. We'll see where that game ends up, if it's 1 o'clock or a 4:30 next Sunday. But draft position. Giants are still sitting at 5. They are one game behind the next 3 teams ahead of them, 2, 3, 4, Arizona, New England. And what happens in that situation is, you look at who those teams are facing next week. Washington is 2, facing Dallas. New England is facing the Jets. And then Arizona, I believe, plays Seattle. You never know what happens with those teams. And the reality is, when the strength of schedule plays out, it's possible that the Giants can get all the way up to 2. It's unlikely, but it's possible. Their strength of schedule, according to Tankathon right now, is 5-11. And remember, it's the lowest strength of schedule when you're tied. And Washington and New England is 5-15, and then Arizona is 5-67. So if the Giants tie any of those teams and the strength of schedule does not jump, the Giants would be ahead of those teams. Now they have Tennessee even with them, so if the Giants were to win, they've obviously would drop behind those teams. So we'll see what happens. We'll have more on that this week, but if you're all for the Giants tank, you got the result you needed today. If you're all for the Giants winning a game, boy, it's another kick in the teeth for this team. They have breathtaking plays, and then there are others that are just a gut punch, and they just can't breathe, and they have the wind knocked out of them. And that was one of those today. Thanks for being all in. Everybody have a happy and a healthy new year, and we'll talk to you in 2024.